everyone. Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 357. We're getting up there. Tonight's show is...
Pull it together.
I'm getting it together.
Professional.
I'm excited because our guest is like one of our favorite people. We've known her for years now. For years, probably one of the first people I met, even just in trail running when I first started over a decade ago. And Sally McRAE is joining us on the show tonight. We love having her on the show. She's relocated to Bend. She's in Oregon, but right now she's training for some big stuff, including the Badwater 135-mile endurance run through Death Valley. We're going to talk to Sally about training for it. She's done it before, but maybe this year's a little bit different. And we're going to talk a little bit about how the last year affected her training and if she's excited about Badwater this year or excited about the heat.
Or she's just like, meh.
Yeah, or she's just like, meh. Meh. We'll see if we can do it. So welcome everyone to the show. We're very excited to have Sally McRAE on tonight. Sit back, relax. The show begins now.
Ginger Runner.
Yay! What is up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 357. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy Monday to spend a little bit of it with us. Big show tonight.
And also first show in weeks that's been on our proper day and proper time.
I was like, where are you going with this? We've done a show every week. Kim's not wrong. If you
First show in weeks that you've brushed your teeth prior to the show.
Yeah, but that's inaccurate because I didn't. The mic knows. Kim's not wrong. Like the last few weeks, we've actually been, we've had some incredible guests, John Kelly, Damian Hall, David Roach. We've had them on the show around 1 p.m. Pacific, but more UK time. So we've been having guests from out of country join us on the show. Really go back and watch or listen to those episodes. They're fantastic with just really wonderful guests. But tonight we're back to our regular-ish scheduled time, and we're actually really into it. It's still a beautiful day here in the Pacific Northwest, but our guest is really the special part about it. We've known her for a number of years. She's probably, as I mentioned in the pre-show there, probably one of the first people I met when I started trail running, and her spirit is infectious. Her laugh is infectious. It's just, there's so much positivity and joy that beams out of our guest that you can't help but be wrapped up in it and just find yourself in a place of happiness. Our guest tonight is Sally McRAE, and we're so excited to have her back on the show, and we'll introduce her here in just a second. But of course, before we do, it's not just our guest, Sally. It's not just myself. We are joined also by the incredible and wonderful Kim. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing well.
Good. I've never met you before. This is a wonderful treat.
You really should brush your teeth.
I'm so sorry. I ate your lunch, so I wish you guys
all thrown off of my normal hi everybody.
What I wish. Look, listen. Here's Sally. Here's our guest. I wish you could. Now you can't hear her, but we have an earpiece that just has our guest laughing hysterically in the background.
I know you guys can hear me.
This is what I'm talking about. This is why I love having Sally on the show, is because he has not stopped this, by the way, since we started. So I'm gonna put Sally away for a second. Hi, Kim.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
We're off the rails, and I love it.
We are off the rails already. We haven't even barely started. I do want to say hi to everybody in the chat room because we are live. Clearly we're live. If you have questions for our wonderful guest, Sally, just ask them in the chat room. Also want to say hi to everybody returning. Hi to new folks. If you're new, say hello in the chat room.
In addition to that, we do want to recognize some members of the community who do go above and beyond. And we are, it is because of our Patreon crew, we call them the GR crew, that we're able to do these shows live. We do GR Live every single Monday. the show that you're watching right now. We also go live every single day with the show called Daily Brew. So we talk about running, training, life in general. We've had a bunch of like mysteries that we've solved on the show, all sorts of fun stuff. But if you would like to be a part of the GR crew, you would like to help what we do here, but also have an amazing community and some really fun behind the scenes type stuff, you can go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. For as little as $2 a month, you get access to a lot of it, including tonight's after show with Sally. So consider joining the GR crew. We would love to have you. 2 individuals in particular at that top tier we like to recognize at the beginning of every Ginger Runner Live. Rick Bjarnison, he lives up in British Columbia. He runs a web design and web maintenance company called cheekymonkeymedia.ca. Rick is an ultra runner. He's currently training for the Sinister 7, which is, that's coming up. That is coming up. So I've been talking with him about that race. He's a super awesome dude, really talented runner. Shout out for him. And Brian Sands as well, longtime supporter of the show, also truly inspiring individual, ran his first marathon ultra, ran his first 100-miler last October, and is now training for some even bigger stuff. So Brian has been just a wonderful human, providing the community with a lot of inspiration. So shout out to those 2 individuals. Thank you so much for doing what you do for all of us. Without further ado, you've already seen her. You've already heard her. She is just a joy, Sally McRAE.
Yay!
Yay! Hi, Sally.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, well, that's
Hello,
it.
Ethan.
That's all the time we have. We really appreciate you. Good luck.
I love it.
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. It's so good to see your faces. I miss you guys. I mean, I know we already had our little pre-chat before the show started, but I'm telling you, we have to somehow. I mean, I'm so much closer to you guys now.
I know.
I mean, now I'm maybe only like 500 miles away.
A car's
600?
drive. A car's drive. Not a human's drive. Yeah, I mean, you're not far. Being in Central Oregon, it's beautiful country there. I know that we've spent a lot of time there, but last we talked, I think it was in November, October, towards the end of 2020. Is that accurate?
I feel like it was definitely pumpkin spice
Pumpkin season.
Yes.
time.
Yes,
That's
Kim.
how we figured it out.
And you were my pumpkin spice
season.
friend. You guys love all that stuff too. I get
We do.
yeah.
From now on, there's going to be a Ginger Runner Live every pumpkin season. It's just Sally and
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
and everything's pumpkin themed.
Just
Don't even
like,
talk about running.
We just go to Trader Joe's and buy literally the whole store. Because now it's like dog food pumpkin spice. I'm not kidding. It's insane.
No, we know this because we have bought those things. They do not taste how you think they would.
Oh.
I would have expected them
How
to
do
taste
they
like,
taste, Ethan?
well, not like human food. What are these, Kim? What did you get? That's not for me. So how has I think we talked to you a little bit about, getting used to living in Bend from Southern California. It's obviously a bit different, but now that you've been there for a while, you've really probably established some roots. How has living in Oregon and Bend and out at altitude, how's that been for you?
It's been good. I think getting used to how much winter weather, like the long stretch of winter weather, that was definitely an adjustment for me, especially training in it, because I typically I don't run well in cold. Not that I don't like it. I love it. I love the snow, and I really love running in rain. But when it drops to, like 18 degrees, I have a hard time like breathing, like my lungs like exasperate. So that was actually good for me. I felt like I've been in that situation before, like in races, and it's, kind of stressed me out at times. Like, how am I going to work through this? So that was just for me, I felt like, oh, this is like such a great opportunity for me to train in this regularly. So whenever it was super cold, I was like, all right, I got to figure out the gear and like how to fuel and just how to be in this temperature.
Yeah.
So I really, really enjoyed that. And it's just beautiful. Like running in the snow was like winter wonderland running. And then outside of that, just being in a smaller community. I mean, we're really close to the river, and they've got great coffee and breweries and all that. And still working on the house. So
good. Yeah, I think last time we checked in, there was a lot of DIY.
Renos going on.
It's fun to follow.
Yeah, we just finished the counter. We just got the countertop. we're going to paint the cabinets in the kitchen next. So, put on the hardware and all that stuff, but a little bit slower now. Cause when we first moved here, Eddie he wasn't working yet. He hadn't started his teaching job. So it was like every single day, all day we were working on it. So now it's just been kind of like a slower process, and then kind of mixing that in with, life and school and training and all that. But I love it. I'm really grateful we had the opportunity to move just even in the first place. I think that's a gift. So
yeah. And this was your first winter there, right? Like you've basically had one winter there. You kind of moved beginning of summer or something like that.
Yeah. We moved August.
Okay.
Like beginning of August. So
got it. So beginning of fall.
Yeah.
Man, what? So like after, living in Southern California, I lived there for 10 years. You've lived there for a lot longer. Your whole life, pretty much, right?
Yeah. I lived in DC for a few years.
Oh, that's
Washington,
right.
DC. Yeah. It's where Mackenzie was born. But that's different from here too. I thought the winter was definitely more mild in DC than it is here.
Yeah. Bend has some extreme conditions and skiing and all sorts of stuff. So has it sort of evolved into summer yet? Are you getting into the heat season?
Really funny is last week we had 90-degree weather, and then we also had hail and rain. And today I woke up to a lot of rain and cold wind. So Bend is a bit bipolar. I would say, I'm not kidding. It is like, you don't know what you're going to get on the given day. So I just got back from a run a little while ago, and it was cold.
I feel like it's very similar here right now. Like we just came out of an 80 to 85 degree sort of bender.
Heat wave.
Yeah. And then we had this weird, what'd you call it? Atmospheric river. That's what it was. And it just like,
yes, I remember that.
It crushed us the last 5 days.
Yeah.
Rain and all sorts of nasty weather. But I, sort of transitioning into the discussion around Badwater, there's obviously your social media content right now, Sally, is through the roof. It's stellar. Well done.
It's so good.
Thank you.
Like following your training and what you've been doing to build up to Badwater, clearly a part of this process is heat training and acclimating your body to the temperatures. When you don't live in a place anymore that sort of replicates that heat, Southern California, you can get that, or at least get close to it. How are you doing it? Like, how are you getting your body used to the 120 degree temperatures?
Right. Well, first, I love the heat. Opposite of the cold, I can breathe a lot better in the heat. So I growing up in it, I am very comfortable in it. If I'm ever in a race where the temperatures are rising, I'm always like, yeah, let's level the playing field. This is good. That's my jam. I like the heat. Once you pass 100 degrees, though, it is like, you don't like that. It's not like, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to try not to die. And I'm laughing because, I think right after I ran Badwater in 2018, Ethan, I was on the show with Yassine. Pretty sure I said I would never, ever, ever, ever run it again.
I think every ultra runner says that. It doesn't never again.
Because it's just next level. And you're dealing with, it's kind of like a silent, invisible challenge. That is really what is so difficult. Like, a picture can't really depict like what you're feeling. And on top of that, like, if anybody watching it or is looking at pictures of video, you associate with the heat that you know best. Well, it's like Death Valley, Furnace Creek, like it's like the hottest on the planet. Like it's you can't like explain what that heat is. And so when I knowing what I all the stuff that I learned from 2018, the thing that worked the best for me was just to get in the heat as much as possible. So being in Bend, we have days here and there that it's nice and hot, but I really like to utilize the infrared sauna because it heats you from the inside. So it actually causes your temperature to go up a couple degrees from the inside. And then you can self-regulate what the temperature is from the inside. So you could set it like at 125, you could go up to 180 if you want. Like gym saunas, like a lot of times they're between 160, 180, but it's like, when are you ever in that kind of heat?
Right.
And then you only last like maybe 20 or 30 minutes in there. So I like to go in the infrared sauna for like an hour. And I usually put it somewhere between like 130, 135, because it's more true to just actually what I'm going to be in. And I'll do different things. Like sometimes I don't work out in the sauna. I'm not like a big believer in that. I like Bikram yoga, like hot yoga, stuff that's like in the 100-degree stuff. But once you go beyond that, I just want to make sure that my stomach understands what to do. So
Oh,
I'll go in
interesting.
there and I'll like eat food, I'll drink, and mentally just be in it. And I do that regularly. Then depending on like the week, what the training week looks like. So if I have like really hard workouts, then I lessen it. Maybe I'll take a break from the sauna for like that week, and maybe I'll just like wear an extra layer, like when I go out running. So there's definitely technique and strategy in it, but overall, and especially for anybody watching in the live chat, you really only need 7 to 14 days of true heat training to acclimatize. And I think that that's really important for people to know, because you'll see people training for Badwater or hot races, and they're like heat training, and they're like 4 months out from the race. And it's like, dude, you're going to totally sabotage your training. By the time you get to the start line, you're going to be totally worn out, depleted. I mean, the dehydration level, the lack of nutrient, everything, you really kind of screw all that up. And you're always kind of in this perpetual state of being tired, because the heat training like really wears you out. So this year I've like been a little bit more strategic as to how I go into the heat. So the last month I've spent half the week in the desert. So I'll go out for like 3 to 4 days, and I just stay in like Lone Pine, Death Valley, and I run like different sections of the course. I spend a lot of time more on the mountain, just because that's like where my heart is.
Yeah.
And I feel like Lone Pine is like kind of like the perfect training place, because it gets really hot there. But then you have the massive mountain. You're at the base of Whitney, and then behind Lone Pine is like you hit Death Valley and Furnace Creek, and just the long flat road, which isn't like a ton of variety. So it's like I'll get on sections of that, but it's like it is what it is. It's a long hot road.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. I definitely have taken what I've learned from 2018, and I've tried to make my training better. And I thought I had great training in 2018. I don't think I've ever trained so hard in my life, but I've said that a lot for a lot of races. I trained the hardest I've ever trained before.
Mhm.
So
It's
yeah.
it's crazy to just hear in regards to heat training. We've had guests on the show talk about that before. When training for Western States is a perfect example, because it's such a high profile race. You're dealing with canyon heat, high altitude, but then as you start to head down, it obviously gets hotter and hotter as you get towards the finish, but then time of day changes everything. So you hear a lot of people training for heat, but just in a short period of time. And, but your brain goes, well, wouldn't it make more sense to train in heat for a longer period of time so your body isn't even phased by the heat?
Yes.
But we've heard more and more people say that you don't need to be training for months in the heat. You only need a very dialed in specific amount of time just before the event. So are you doing sauna training now, or you're doing it closer to the date?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. So I kind of done it 2 ways, and I've actually I started like putting heat training into just my normal training, I'd say like 12 years ago. I started out by buying one of those really cheap sauna suits. So this is before I was even running ultras. I incorporated sauna suits and weight vests into my training. And it was just kind of a way, a part of it was like just mental training. There is a ton of science on how heat training can make you a better athlete. There's improvements that you can make, and just physiologically that you can improve as an athlete and just be better in all conditions. Obviously you can be mentally tougher too. The key though, and I'm such a dork, but I do spend a ton of time reading this, watching scientists on YouTube, like at big science conferences. Like I study heat like so much. It's ridiculous. And I'm really fascinated with it, because the studies that are done on human beings, the studies are all over the place. So they'll be like, oh, this we did this heat training study, but then you find out it's like, okay, you did it on 20 people and they were at 90 degrees on a bike. Like, that doesn't really help me.
Yeah, it doesn't replicate anything.
Yeah. And then I'm always constantly looking, okay, where are there more studies? Like, I want to see what the studies are. Like, what are they finding? So even today, like I was sitting eating my lunch and I watched 2 YouTube channels of 2 different scientists with their, one of them was like some German guy I could barely understand, but so I clicked over to another one, but I'm so fascinated with it. And what I personally love too is that I just feel like there's still a lot that we don't know about the individual in heat. Like, why do and it's the same thing for altitude. Some people can go into altitude and they're like amazing, like they're totally fine. And then your friend could be like barfing their brains out and like they do terrible by the time they hit 5,000 feet.
Right.
So I think, and this is what has really drawn me into the sport, is curiosity. I'm fascinated with what we are capable of doing and just our resiliency and really searching out, like, where is the limit? What am I able to do? I think science kind of gives us that path. Like, you need electrolytes, you need to be drinking, you need to take care of your organs. Like, this is what your blood is doing when you get overheated, and to study that. But I also am like trying to push the envelope a little bit to find out, okay, but what can Sally do in this heat to be better? And so I think when it comes to just heat training as a whole, I like to do it year round. But let's say, like, I'll break it up in 12 months. So like maybe like each month, especially in my base training, I might incorporate like a heat day, maybe 3 or 4 times a month as I'm just like building. And it could be something like I could go run for like 2 hours and then I'll go hop in the sauna for 20 minutes. And I'll go in there with like without water, and then I'll get out and maybe I won't drink anything for like 20 minutes, and then I'll like replenish. So there's all these different types of strategies of heat trainings and the different benefits as to how you do it. And then other times I'll be like, all right, I'm just going to wear like 3 layers and go run in the canyons, but I'm not going to go deplete myself. I'm going to hydrate as best I can and just be in the heat and be hot. So I do play around with a lot, but I have for years. And I think, like anything, it takes a gradual buildup. And yes, if you can run in the heat and you're just used to that all the time, you're just going to be a better athlete, both mentally and physically. If you're training for a heat specific race where you're going to be in there, I mean, a lot of the ultras, for example, or even a hot road marathon, you're looking at hours in the heat.
Right.
And, you look at how even 4% of dehydration, I mean, your performance level drops up to like 50% if you're like 4% dehydrated. And I don't think people understand how much your performance, your VO2 max, all that comes down drastically when you become dehydrated. So that is why I say, when people get hyper focused on, oh my gosh, Western States, I got to start heat training 6, 7, 8 weeks out. It's like, ooh, well, be careful how you do it, because there is a very specific protocol. If you have 7 to 14 days of like really solid focus heat training, well, then there's a way that you also have to come out of it too, where that you stop and then like every 2 days you go in for this amount, and then you make sure you rehydrate, and then 2 days later you do this. And I think that if people understood that, they'd show up to the starting line a lot better. But incorporating it into your whole year allows you, when you are training for a hot race, to be better prepared to handle the demands that heat training has on your body.
I hope everyone finds Sally's Venmo and just sends her $50, because that knowledge block right there in regards to heat training was so specific and helpful to ultra runners training for something like Western States or Badwater. I mean, that's such good knowledge and good intel as far as preparing your body, because I think the number of conversations we've had around heat training on this show, out of 357 episodes, is probably close to 340 episodes. But I don't think we've had quite that specific look at, there's a protocol and there's like an appropriate way to do it that will train your body to handle it correctly, the hydration side of it correctly. Wonderful knowledge, Sally. We are again live with Sally McRAE. Kim, you pulled a ton of questions aside. I'll just let you.
A ton of questions.
Yeah, I'll let you just take it.
Yeah, this kind of dovetailing on what you're just talking about. But Kathy asked, Sally, do you have any tips for dealing with any nausea from the heat?
Oh, yeah. That's, nausea, a lot of times could be an indication that you're lacking in a nutrient and it specifically your electrolytes. Your most important electrolyte is going to be potassium, believe it or not. So your potassium needs for the day is something like 4,770 milligrams or something like that. That's a lot. And in fact, it's very hard to even get that in your food. And you look at an electrolyte like packet, you'll see 150 milligrams potassium. That's like what, like not even 1% of your daily value needs. So it's really important that if you are, and we are all entering the summer, or for most of us, you're entering the summer, that what you're eating on a daily basis is filled with the right nutrients that are going to support your hydration, just your daily hydration. So looking at the potassium and the sodium is really, really important. You could do like a quick search. I mean, even on Pinterest, potassium rich foods, and really start making sure you incorporate those just into your everyday diet. And it's all like really good, healthy stuff. And so I would say that could be a reason. Every person is different. This kind of like similar with altitude. Some of us just have weaker stomachs when it comes to thin air and really hot temperatures. So the best thing that you can do, and I always tell the athletes that I coach, is every long run is this is your fact finding about you. I don't care what of your run buddies are doing. You are unique and your dietary needs are specific to you. You're sensitive to other things that maybe your best buddy might not be sensitive to. So dedicate your long runs to, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try different foods. But then also getting the timing right. If I eat every 20 minutes, does that make you nauseous? Is it better that you eat every 40 minutes? Are you better eating 50 calories at a time or 150 calories at a time?
Right.
How well are you processing? So, the running in the heat, it can be tricky, but you just have to keep experimenting and then make sure that you keep experimenting with the amount of electrolytes and really pay attention to the levels in the electrolytes.
That's amazing insight. I just want to let the live audience know that Sally, just so you know, your video is frozen, but your audio is like perfect. Luckily, it's a very nice still frame. It's not like a random pose or anything. So Sally, can you see us okay still?
Yeah, I can still see you guys.
Do you mind maybe turning your camera off and then back on? Just like mute your camera and turn it back on. We'll see if that remedies it.
Okay.
But regardless, we can hear you totally fine. Okay. That's her camera gone.
Give it like a minute.
Yeah, and then you just click it back on, see if it connects.
Okay.
We'll get it sorted.
Here we go.
There we go. We got Sally back. It was that easy.
Okay.
I'll let you know if it happens again, Sally. It's
cool.
It's a Skype problem.
Marie Claude in the chat room says Sally is so good at managing the heat that she is now frozen.
Literally proving the point. Like, here's how I train. I freeze. That's all it is. Great insight, though. Let's get to more.
Yeah, the question is from Deb Runs Far over on our Discord server. And Deb asks, Sally,
love her.
How do you feel about the evening start for Badwater? Would you prefer to have the morning start like in previous years?
Yes, I would love to have the morning start. For two reasons. One, because that is the original way the race was run. In 2014, which is the year that I actually crewed it, and that was the year that put the seed in my mind of possibly doing Badwater one day. The Badwater course was changed because the national parks were kind of doing an evaluation of the race, and I think there was even a thought that the race would probably go away, but in order to bring the race back, they had to change it to the night start. So it wasn't like, hey, let's just do it at the night, this will be funner. The difficult thing about starting at night is, and for everyone in the chat room that races, you get up and you want to race. You don't sleep well the night before anyway. And it's like, I just want the race to start. Let's get going. So you kind of spend like you spend the whole day not really trying to rest, kind of going in and out of rest. And then there's 3 starts. And so the start that I usually do is the last one. It's 11 p.m. And that's just like a really crappy time to start running. So you're essentially just running through the night. Last year, the start line was 113 degrees at 11 p.m.
Wow.
And so it wasn't like it was cooler. It wasn't like,
Jeez.
I mean, you didn't have the sun hitting you, which was kind of deceiving too, because the sun wasn't out, but it was so crazy hot. But yeah, I think I would love just to be able to rest and then wake up rested and just like have at it. Everyone that goes is like ready for the heat. It's not like anyone that's on the start line is like, oh wow, I didn't know it was gonna be hot.
Right.
You know? So it's like it's starting it when
I'm just picturing
starting
it.
that poor one
Right?
person.
They just came with like one, like,
right?
like the tiniest amount of water,
Yeah, I have a handheld.
full like
There's where are the aid stations?
puffy vest
In
on.
long tights.
Yeah.
In long tights, right?
Ready to go.
Bit toastier than I thought. No, so I think it's like, yeah, we would love to start when the sun's up and in the morning and kind of feeling fresh. So there's always differing opinions though. Some people say, oh, it was a lot harder when it started in the day. I've only run it at night, so that's kind of all I know. I can't imagine it being easier either way. It's just hard anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
You're either super tired or the sun's beating down on you.
Yeah, like I mean, just you saying 113 degrees at 11 p.m. is just like, yeah, that's a big no. That's a big old no for me. But that brings the question back to, you've done this race before. You've done a handful of races multiple times, but what is it that brings you back to this? You've proved to yourself that you can do it, you know, like what is it that brings it back?
Yeah, well, the first year that I did it, as I said earlier, you know, I thought that I did train really well. I thought I dialed in everything, the heat training, the long runs, the high mileage weeks. I was really strong. I was very fit. I had a plan, I had a race plan, and I was so dialed in, and I didn't get it right. So for me, just as an athlete and someone that always wants to improve, that's like my main goal every year is I want to be better. And I dreamed of it, you know, after I finished in 2019, is like, should I do it? Should I not? But I want to go back and just be better than I was. You know, I think that's just a lifelong goal of mine. I always want to improve, but also there's so much mystery about the race. I think this year, that's kind of why I'm showcasing a little bit more on my Instagram, even leading up to my training. You know, I know a lot of athletes don't. I know a lot of athletes are really secret about their training. We're not gonna let people know what we're doing, and you know all that stuff. But I'm like, dude, like it's like that's kind of like the beauty of the community is, and even just in this race is like this race. There's so many variables about it that aren't common in the ultra community. So for me, I'm a mountain runner. When we think of big mountain races, like we can all kind of like attach to that and connect to that because we can all we get kind of have the opportunity to get up in the mountains, and many of us love running mountain races. But to go and be in a place that literally feels like you're on Mars in the middle of nowhere, where the temperatures have been recorded as the hottest on the planet. It is just weird and it's exotic. But also I love just the parallel. You know, I had put this in a post, so there's so many parallels to life in it. You're running at you're at the lowest point, in the United States. And the original course runs you to the top of of Mount Whitney, the highest point in the lower 48 states. And I in order to get to the top, you have to run through this fiery belly of a desert. And I think there's just so much beauty that's in that. You know, when you kind of turn the corner and you eventually see this beautiful mountain range that you're running to, I can't explain what goes on in my heart, but I just am so pulled by it. And so my goal for the race this year and showcasing online was just like, I want people to feel what I feel, but also to hopefully inspire people that you can do hard things. And also just that parallel that a lot of times the challenges that we face in life, they're silent. They're ones that people can't see or that they can't understand. And you can feel very alone in it. I mean, there's only 100 people that do this race. I think people are in the ultra community are very divided on it. You know, I hear a lot of people, you're stupid, you're crazy. Why are you doing that? Race is so dumb. And then other people that are like, wow, I've always wanted to do that. That's like so amazing. But I think there's something to even be said about that, that when we build up a goal for ourselves, it becomes so precious to us. And it's okay that no one else understands it, or that people can't feel what we're feeling in it. But realizing that that's kind of the essence of what keeps us moving on in life, that wonder and that imagination, and like why some of us are pulled towards other things. I mean, we can appreciate it about that each other and find inspiration from each other in that. And so, yeah, I think coming back to this race, it's just, there's so much wrapped up into it, and it's become really very, very personal to me. And I would say too, like, for as much as I want to be like, yeah, man, I'm going to crush it. Like I have this like great fear of it, because I've already done it before. Every time I go out to the desert to train, or I get up on that mountain, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I had 3 more months to train. Because it's like, you know, you think you're having a great week, like training, you feel strong. And then I get out there and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have a lot of work to do. So yeah.
That actually, man, that dovetails perfectly into the question, because as I was listening, I was sort of like, yeah, there's a lot of excitement, and there's a lot of personal pursuit, and all of these passions that you have about this race, this region, the beauty in it, and the experiment of it all. I was curious if there was fear, because you know, fear motivates a lot of people. It doesn't motivate everybody, but there are certain elements to a race like this, particularly, where you are up against elements that are so extreme. A lot of people wouldn't want to attempt it, myself included. I just dealing with hot temperatures doesn't appeal to me at this stage in my life. So fear, is there something about this that you do fear that it also sort of beckons? Does the fear beckon you in this case?
Well, I think, you know, and for a lot of ultra runners listening, I think that one of the cool thing about our sports is that it's very hard to dial in and get structured, right? Like there's no amount of like Excel spreadsheets or heart rate data or whatever that's going to help you dial in an ultra race. When people train for a 10K, even a triathlon, like you're able to just like, okay, this is where I need to be at this point, and I need to keep this pace. I'm going to go practice that over and over and over again. And so we can become very secure and very comforted in our training stats, because we know when we walk up to the start line on race day, let's say for a half marathon, we want to set a personal best. We can kind of pretty much guess where we're going to be. Like, all right, I'm going to do this in 2 hours, 7 minutes. Okay, I think I can do it. All I got to do is keep this. And I know by mile 7, I need to be here. You can't really do that with ultras, because there's so many variables. In 2017 when I ran UTMB, I remember it was like, we didn't expect a snowstorm to come in halfway into the race,
Right.
and for everyone to have to wear all their gear that was in their bag. Like, it was like next level. And I remember getting lost for like 20 minutes at the top of a mountain. There was so much fog, you couldn't even see anything. Like, how do you plan for that? And so I think that is what kind of pulls us in these races too, is that there has to be a level. There's 2 sides of fear. There's the fear that paralyzes you, and then there's the fear that brings respect. And so I always feel like if I approach something with the fear of, I respect what I'm going into, and I realize that I could train my heart out, I could know this course, I could be well heat acclimated, got my nutrition and my electrolytes down, and I could still fail. I could still fail because of A, B, and C. And I think a lot of the ultra races are like that. But I think the beauty in it is that we still proceed. You know, so often in ultras you hear like, well, it wasn't my day, you know, it wasn't my day, and so I dropped out. And it's like, no, it was never supposed to be your day. This was supposed to be you finding out what you're capable of doing in the face of adversity, doing something that is so, to a lot of people, crazy, but really you're just courageous. I mean, ultra runners aren't crazy, they're courageous. They are really trying to find out what they're capable of doing, and in turn inspiring other people around them. And I think that Badwater, you know, there's far more people that have climbed Mount Everest than have crossed the finish line of Badwater, which is really cool. But the elements that make it so difficult are the heat. It's the heat. It isn't the 135 miles. It's why does the heat come in and just completely consume runners and just humbles them to their knees. And so I like that idea of I need to respect that. It doesn't matter how fit I am. It really is just, it's the whole big picture of respecting of what I'm going to do, but also like really believing in my heart that we are so much more resilient and capable of so much more. Like Kipchoge is such a great example of someone's like, dude, I think I can break the 2 hour barrier of the marathon. But 20, 30 years ago, people didn't believe that. That was crazy. Like, why would you even, that's not ever going to happen. And I love that idea that as decades pass, we can look back and be like, remember when that was crazy? Well, all it takes is just like a couple people to just try. And so, for me, that's what I want to do with this race. I want to try and push the barriers a little bit and do some good things out there. So
I beautifully stated, Sally. I so inspired just by your words. I am now registered for Badwater.
You will melt.
Hey, you see, next year, more people are going to Badwater. Then they're going to go visit the desert and be like, and no.
And I'm going to slowly back
Just
away.
kidding.
Badwater is just like one of those things that just like fascinates my brain.
Yep.
I don't personally think it's like a race that suits me, but it fascinates me.
What I think is funny, we've talked about it a number of times over the years, and I don't think it's a race that suits really anybody. I think anyone who's like, I love 125 degree.
No,
I love it. Like, but that what we're seeing, what I feel like being in the ultra running scene now for over a decade, I felt like I was late to it when I started in 2012. I felt like, 2012, so it's not quite a decade. Sure feels like it. But when I started, I was like, I'm late to the game. Like there's already so many ultras and there's so many people in the sport and that sort of thing. But now we're seeing just in the last year, 2 years, we're seeing so many people push the envelope of what we thought was possible just in this weird, tiny niche of a sport. And you throw something like Badwater at it, which has been around for a long time, obviously, and is a crazy distance. It was 35 miles more than 100 at one point. Was like, what? Like 100 is it? How could you go beyond that? And we're seeing all these things happening now. We're 200 or 250 or 600,
right?
And it's like, wow, there really is. We're seeing the limits of human potential, but the reality is we're not. We're seeing what humans are willing to put themselves through to prove what is possible.
I love that.
I love what you just said. So I really appreciate that answer. And again, our guest tonight, Sally McRAE, we are live with her. We do have a number of live questions. Kim, we've pulled a bunch aside. Let's get to a couple more of those, and then we'll sort of wrap up a little bit about states and then after show.
Yeah, sure. Great question from Chloe, and one that I think a lot of people can relate to. Chloe asked, Sally, do you ever get into running ruts? If so, how do you get out of them and stay motivated?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Chloe, that's normal for every aspect of our lives, right? Even in relationships and work and school. I mean, we just are like, yeah, this isn't fun. I'm not motivated to do this right now. So I will preface it with saying it is, it's motivating when it's your job, because you're like, hey, I get paid to do this. And so that does help. But it wasn't always like that. And I have been an athlete my whole life, and then having 2 kids. I mean, there was a lot of seasons where it was just like, I can't even get out the door, it's just like, and then running was frustrating for me, and working out was frustrating because I had like this cycle of like, I was motivated and then I wasn't, and then there was barriers. And then, so I think that first and foremost is to acknowledge whether or not the rut is like it's one day or a couple days, or if it's like weeks on end. And I think that those are 2 totally different things. So like when a rut is like weeks on end, like you could genuinely just be burnt out. And what I like to speak to in that is ask yourself first, when was the last time you took an off season? I used to never, ever take an off season. I'm just a really high energy person anyway. So I'm always like, I got to do something, got to run. But I've now learned that it's so important. So I'll take like a month off of where I just say I just do whatever sounds fun. So it's stand-up paddling, it's surfing, it's cycling, hiking, yoga, like whatever I want to do. But I just tell myself that it's still important that I'm moving, because movement is so important to your total well-being. So you don't want to be in a rut and then just like stay inside. You want to stay curious. So it's okay to like take a break from running, do that, because once you start to explore other things, and even if it's just getting outside and walking, going hiking or whatever, you'll start to kind of crave running again, and you'll appreciate it, and you'll feel better, when you do it. Now, if it's like you actually do kind of want to train, but you're just not like feeling great, I always tell people, don't focus on how you're feeling in the moment. Put on your shoes, tell your feelings to be quiet, because feelings are fleeting, but the truth is that you need to get out and train. Put on the shoes and then just walk for a mile. Let yourself always start by walking. And I actually still do this to this day. In fact, today was a really great example, because today's my recovery day, but I still have to get out and do some recovery miles. But I did not eat a good lunch. Oh my gosh. And so my intestines were not happy. Dude, I had walked for like the first mile. It was not good, dude. But what I realized too is I thought, this is just all part of being an athlete. You're going to have days where you just start out and you're like, oh, like this doesn't feel great. But if we only went out when we felt great, we'd probably only run like half the time, maybe. I'm not the first person to say that, right? But yeah, allow yourself to have an off season, allow yourself to be in that rut. No, that's totally normal. But also push yourself a little bit to do other stuff. Take a break, do other stuff for like a week. Keep moving though, because you deserve to keep moving.
Well, I'm glad that your lunch is allowing you to stay here with us now.
Yeah, we're all good now. We're all good.
We're going to talk more about Badwater in the after show. Kim has still a number of questions that live viewers asked that we'll get to in the after show, because I know Badwater still it's coming up in the middle of July. I believe you said how many days? What's the breakdown?
35 days. 35 days. I think now 7 hours and 2 seconds.
Because who's counting? Sally is clearly counting. But I did want to just transition.
That's just an estimate.
This is an estimate.
Just a guess.
I wanted to briefly transition to Western States, because Western States is, of course, just around the corner. Sally has a close connection with this race. It was one of my first experiences at a 100-mile race, was at your race there,
yes.
which was just this miracle.
Ethan was my crew chief, people. It was incredible.
It was a magical adventure, and we've been back multiple times since, and you obviously have a close connection to this race. Are you going to be there this year? And are you excited about anyone in particular? Is there any story that you're intrigued by or are closely following?
Yeah, a few people asked me to be there. For those of you who followed along in the last years, I had the privilege of being able to pace and crew for Lucy 2 years in a row, which was so much fun. She's a really precious, dear soul to me. So that was amazing. And then this year, a few people asked, but it just isn't working out with the schedule. So, sadly, I will not be there. I really am going to miss it. I have a few teammates that are running, so obviously I'm a little bit biased toward my teammates. I have Brittany and Keely and Tyler. They're from Nike Trail. They're all running, and I'll tell you, they are stellar athletes, all of them.
Yeah.
They're amazing on the road, and they're amazing on the mountains, which I think, as we've seen over the years, if you have leg speed, you're a great climber too. I mean, that's pretty much how you win this race. So, you need to be great in the mountains, and then you need to be ready to run like a super fast 50K at the end of the race. And so, my teammates are going to do really well. Ruth Croft, I have to give a special shout out to her. She's another dear friend of mine. She is a Kiwi. She's from New Zealand. She's incredible. I have been following her forever. She's the kind of athlete who goes out and wins races outright. I mean, she beats the boys all the time. She's insanely fast on the road. Probably one of the grittiest, toughest runners that I know. She's amazing at every distance, and she has put in some incredible training. I know she was just on the PCT trail this past weekend. She's been linking up with U.S. runners. She and I have been chatting on Messenger, and throwing some tips out here and there with gear and stuff like that. She is forever a student of the sport, which I think is a very strong attribute to any athlete. Is Ruth is humble in wanting to learn as much as she can. She's incredible just outright, but she doesn't ever present herself that way. She's always like, what can I learn? What can I do? So I'm rooting hard for her. I think she's an incredible ambassador for our sport. But I also think that Brittany and Keely, I'm just going to say, like, they could very, very easily be up there on the podium as well. And this is every year, Ethan, Kim, aren't we saying every year is the deepest field in the history of the race? Every single year for like the past 4 years.
It's true. I feel like
5 years, maybe.
There's like a script that we have to follow when we do our Western State shows of like, this is the year, it's the deepest field we've ever had. And it's not because we're just making it up. It's because you look at the list and you go, there's 30 or 40 women or 30 or 40 dudes that could just take this thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And this year is no different. I feel like the blank year, the 2020, I think we're going to see a lot of athletes really well prepared, just chomping at the bit. We're going to see people who are probably been running too much, have significant, like beautiful, epic blow ups, like the stuff we just love to follow.
But I also think like people are like emotionally craving the community aspect of it too after the last year. Yeah. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch it play out.
I am so thrilled that we get to talk about some of those athletes. Hopefully on next week's show, we'll do a little bit of a Western States debrief. But thank you, Sally, for giving us a little bit of insight too. I know that.
Yeah, I'm excited to follow.
We would love to bring you on as like let's live commentator. Let's really get in and start nitpicking.
Right? That would be so fun.
It would be super fun. But it is going to be interesting because I think they are doing some live stuff this year. So I'm excited to sort of follow along and see what we get to see
better with that with a lot of the races.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is what our sport needs.
Yes.
We need more coverage so people understand it's not just us eating at aid stations and walking up a mountain.
I mean,
we are racing.
There's a little bit more. There's fun conversations. But it's going to be nice to not just have to follow tweets. Like basically how you follow a race is a tweet when they arrive and a tweet when they leave, and then you got to wait an hour.
And refreshing it for 20 hours, literally just refreshing it.
So it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out this year. But it's so great to see that technology has sort of caught up to allow us to do this sort of thing, and I'm excited to see how it's implemented and stuff like that. Our guest tonight is Sally McRAE. Just a wonderful show with you again, Sally. We love having you on. We got to have you on sooner.
Thank you.
Let's just do it every Monday.
Right?
But let people know where they can follow you, because I know Badwater is around the corner. You still have a lot of training to do and probably a lot of stuff to share. Where can people follow you and keep track of you during all of this?
Yeah, I'm probably the most active on my Instagram is Yellow Runner. And then I have a website too, sallymcrae.com.
Fantastic. Do not hesitate to follow Sally or reach out if you have any additional questions and stuff like that. Just totally worth it. Go follow Sally. We are going to move into our after show. So we have some additional questions that Kim has pulled aside. If you have a question for Sally that didn't get asked during this main show, you can join us in our after show. It is quite easy. Give me 1 second with it. Here's the graphic. Nice slow fade to us. If you would like to join our after show, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner for as little as $2 a month. You support everything that we do here, this live show, our daily live streams, our movies, our reviews, everything. But you get some cool behind the scenes stuff and tonight's after show. So join us if you would like. We're going to wrap up our main show here, Ginger Runner Live 357. But of course, before we do, we like to recognize a member of the community who goes above and beyond. We call it our GR Crew Member of the Week. We just like to highlight a member of the community every single week. Kim, who's this week's GR Crew Member?
This week's GR Crew Member of the Week is Mary Adkins. And Mary posted on our Facebook page, and she said she ran a 5K this weekend called Run for Your Buns for colorectal awareness and prevention. And Mary went on to say that she ran in honor of Ethan. If you're on our Facebook page, you'll have to go look to see what the finish line shoot was.
It's worth it. and it's worth it to go scope it out.
Yeah.
Speaking of scope, I appreciate that very much. But if you don't follow me on Instagram, I had an interesting week this last week. I'm 40 years old, and I had my very first colonoscopy, which was not something I anticipated having to deal with for another 10 or 15 years, when most people tend to get them on a regular schedule. On my most recent Instagram post goes into more detail as to why, what they found, and what the results were. So I appreciate that someone ran for me. There's a lot of other people I would think that would probably deserve it a lot more, but my reasoning in opening up about it is because I never would have gotten the procedure, a colonoscopy, had I not talked to other people who said, go get it. And it was very important that I did, because they found some stuff. They took care of it. As far as I know, I'm okay, but we'll obviously update you in the years to come. I hope it's okay that you don't mind. I'm going to be here a lot longer talking about shoes and runs and like doing long distance stuff for long time ahead. But it was a thing that I wanted to open up and talk about, because I think it's extremely important for men or women to talk more openly about it.
There's a lot of stigma around it. I encourage you all to go check out Ethan's Instagram post or Facebook post as well for more details.
I never thought I'd be talking about it on a Ginger Runner Live episode. I never thought I'd be making an Instagram post about it. I just thought it was something that's like, that's not my life. But the reality is it could be any single one of us. Yeah. So I encourage you to check out the post and take care of yourself, advocate for yourself. And if you need to get something looked at, get it looked at. That is it for tonight's episode. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you so much to our guest, Sally McRAE. We're going to move right into the after show. I don't want to keep her too long, but we'll see you over there. Join the GR crew. We'll see you next week. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ginger